Good morning. I'm John McLaughlin from Biochar Northeast, and I'm here to promote biochar as a soil supplement and easy ways that the homemaker can actually make it. One of the first things that we kind of did is to use wood pellets. Wood pellets, you fill up what's known as a 1 gallon T-lud. This is your basic paint can. Put it on 3 nails. You put an aerator, so when the thing burns off, you wind up capturing it. Those gases will mix with air up on the top. You've got air that comes in through the bottom of the bucket. You light it on top using some alcohol. With the alcohol with some chips, put it on there, light it with a match. It winds up burning from the top all the way down to the bottom. But to actually make it so it draws well, you want to put an aerator in because you have air coming up from the bottom. This is known as a top lit updraft. You light the top of it and it updrafts all the way up to the top. But you mix air in the top here, put a flue on it. When the flame front comes all the way down and you can see it glowing on a bright red, it means that the flame front's all the way down the bottom. At that point, you can just take this top off, take the nails out, suffocate it, put a top on it, a paint lid top on it. It suffocates it, let it cool, and you wind up getting very usable biochar out of wood pellets.
So go over why biochar is so important these days.
The advantages of using biochar as a soil supplement is that it winds up retaining moisture, which is very good for, say, high clay soils, and so they'll allow moisture to get in there, or high sandy soils where moisture doesn't retain at all because it drains right out. So it retains moisture, but when it retains moisture, it also retains all the micronutrients that are available, like potassium and phosphate. And it's phosphate they're trying to capture to keep it out of, say, Lake Champlain, or at least the rivers and streams, so it doesn't wind up accumulating there because it causes the huge algae blooms in Lake Champlain. A lot of work's being done to see if you can capture the phosphorus versus being able to have it run off. The reason that the phosphorus is available or winds up on the soil is that if you put manure in there, I'm sorry, back it up a little bit. Corn is a very phosphorus intensive feedstock. They got to grow it to feed the cows. The cows eat it, they wind up in a manure. So manure is very high in phosphorus. The phosphorus they spread out in the soil, it doesn't wind up, it winds up running off and it winds up in your groundwater, goes off to the stream. So you can capture it, which biochar will do. A lot of research being done on how to make that more effective. But you can take that biochar, which has all those nutrients in it, or in your garden, captures those nutrients, and it winds up being a very good environment for the microbes that wind up taking those nutrients and making them available to the plant. It's healthy for your plant. It also is a nice way of stabilizing carbon because manure you'd have to put it in, well, every year, but if you put it in once, in 2-3 years, the effect of it would all be gone away. It'd all be reduced by the microbes and, up somewhere. Whereas the biochar, when you make it out of, wood product or any sort of forest waste product, it'll wind up sequestering that carbon, and you put it in once, get your carbon content in your soil up there, it's there for you in the foreseeable future. We're talking a half-life of 500 to 1,000 years easily.
So, effectively, would you be reducing your need for chemical fertilizing?
Yes, absolutely. It also is a good way of using, waste products, both forest, agricultural waste. You can make biochar out of corn stover. You can make it out of the chaff for wheat. Japanese use a lot of corn or rice husks. They make biochar out of it, and they wind up putting that back in the soil as a soil supplement for all the advantages of biochar.
So,
but it would reduce the need for chemical fertilizers.
Right. And how much biochar per acre, or do you have a sort of a chart?
If you're really trying to use it for agricultural purposes, you really need about, you want to get your carbon content of the soil up between 5 and maybe 10%. An example of that is the terra preta they find in the Amazon River Basin. And they know that from archaeological research that the sites of this black earth supported Indian populations of hundreds and hundreds of Indians for hundreds and hundreds of years, which is a lot different than the very weak soils of the Amazon rainforest that they slash and burn, use it for agricultural purposes, you know, like contemporary purposes, slash and burn it, agricultural purposes, and that soil is completely exhausted in 2 to 3 years. And so we don't quite know how these old societies, this is all pre-Columbus discovered in America, how they actually did it, but they know it was human activity because they found fish shards or fish bones and pottery shards to the depth of up to 6 feet, but it's black earth. Terra preta means black earth in Portuguese. So, but it shows that it's still in the soil. So that's why this half-life of 500 to 1,000 years is very probably conservative, but it really does. It's a stable form of carbon when you produce it out of biomass at a high temperature, and then when it winds up being the pure carbon form, then you wind up, stopping. You don't want it to gasify off and wind up being all CO2 in the air. So if you capture the pure carbon form, which is a form of graphite plates, it winds up retaining this moisture. With the moisture, it retains the micronutrients and makes those micronutrients available to the plants or the microorganisms that grow. Now let me show you a couple other kind of neat ways of using biochar. These are some stoves that I've made up. This is what a natural draft stove would be, and you support it on some 3 nails, fill it up with wood pellets, and light on the top, lets it burn down, put on here, and that's this particular one right here is this natural draft one. This is a power base, use a 9-volt battery, a computer fan with a power base. Again, another can on here. Put this, you hear, drop this can down inside. Put a retainer ring over the top. Put a flue on top of that. You get this one here, a very usable lamp. And basically what you're doing is using the best example I can think of is a fireplace. The yellow flames in a fireplace. You light it, you wind up burning off all those yellow gases, and then, that's what makes the fire warm. What you're doing is you're thermally decomposing the wood, and it produces what's called pyrolytic gases, which is methane, so carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide because that's a combustion product, a little acetylene, and all these things all gas off. When your fire dies down, let the fire go out, you'll see the glowing coals of wood. Well, if you look at it carefully, you'll find out it's really burning in a light blue flame. And that's the pure carbon being reduced to CO2. So if you can stop the thing being gasified, and you can either, drown it, or you can just snuff it out. Put a top on it, and it'll extinguish it. Let it cool, and it winds up in its form. Grind it up, put it in your soil. If you're really going to make a lot of quantities for it, you want to use a 55-gallon barrel. You put a retort in it. And this retort, fill it up with stock, whether it's dimensional lumber that is being discarded, or whether it's your hardwood limbs just chunked up, but you wind up putting a chunk form. Fill up your retort with wood, flip it upside down in your 55-gallon burn barrel, pack the outside ring, the space left, with wood, light the wood on the top, because down on the bottom you've got a lot of openings. But you light the barrel on the top. When the thing gets going, you put your barrel lid over, and this is nothing but a 3-foot flue a sheet metal flue that came out here. It makes a very clean stream. Notice there's no black smoke coming out of this. And this flame front is about a foot down from the top of the barrel. So you know it's hot. And there's no flames coming out. And you wind up getting a very usable biochar that looks like that.
So if everybody made their own biochar, everybody across the country, and put it in their garden or their soil, we would be sequestering the carbon that is probably why we have so much parts per million in the atmosphere.
It would definitely impact on, it would definitely reduce that. Plus it would use up waste products that would be left being converted to CO2 anyway. If a tree falls down in the forest and you do nothing else, it's going to disappear in 10 years. Well, where does it go? It winds up being broken down by the microbes, and it's eventually going to wind up in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. That carbon will be recycled back up, because that's where it came from originally. Plants convert CO2 into carbon and make oxygen. When it winds up decomposing, that carbon will wind up being, broken down by the soil microbes and wind up with CO2. If you use those as scrap product, make biochar out of it, it sequesters that carbon, and that CO2 doesn't go up there. So instead of that tree falling down in the forest, rotting in 10 years, if you could bring it in, convert it to biochar, you've stabilized probably 40% of the carbon content by weight as a very stable form of carbon, 500 to 1,000 years.
Would you like to say your name and how people can get in touch with you?
Yes, I'm John McLaughlin. I'm with Biochar Northeast, and you'll find us on a website called www.biochar.org. And please look at our website. Feel free to contact me. Phone number is 802-353-2124. Thank you very much.